pretend to know anything about this fight. In your main event, you have Alistair Overeem versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik at heavyweight. Now, usually, I'm not super into heavyweight fights. Heavyweight is just so slow and not nearly as technical and just so boring a lot of the time. But this fight actually kind of interests me. It's kind of shitty as a main event. Jairzinho is replacing Walt Harris. Obviously, Walt Harris is going through a lot of personal issues right now, which I won't go into details, but essentially his daughter went missing, and we now know that she was kidnapped and murdered. So it's a really tragic situation. It's good that Walt Harris isn't fighting because he probably needs time to process that. Again, if you want more information, just look it up. It's been very publicized and looks like they're going to face justice, which is good. They already had a record, but anyway, we're not going to go into that too much. We're going to focus on the fight here. So Rozenstruik is going to replace Walt Harris on short notice, and he has just been on an absolute tear through the UFC heavyweight division. All 3 of his UFC fights have been won by KO. He hasn't seen the 3rd round yet. 2 first-round knockouts, including a 9-second knockout, which is crazy. Just came off a KO win over Arlovsky, which we just talked about. That was episode 2 or 3, where I mentioned Arlovsky's chin was just shot. But Rozenstruik, he's also been knocking out people moving backwards with like jabs and short hooks. He hasn't even been hitting people hard. He just has the touch of death, which when you're facing Alistair Overeem, that's a very big advantage because Alistair Overeem, I looked into his striking defense. He has okay striking defense. I think it's the 9th best in the heavyweight division. Nothing to gawk at, but it's not terrible. But when you're facing someone with Rozenstruik's power, with Overeem's chin, I mean, even when in his prime, Overeem did not have a great chin. That's bad news. And this fight kind of reminds me of Silva versus Adesanya. This is sort of a passing of the torch type of fight because Alistair Overeem came from a kickboxing background. Obviously, he's one of the best strikers in MMA history as far as decoration. And Rozenstruik also comes from a kickboxing background, has a very good kickboxing record. And so this sort of thing, if Rozenstruik beats Overeem, he kind of takes that torch from him. The difference between these guys, though, is Overeem has much more MMA experience. Rozenstruik has 9 MMA fights. This will be his 10th. This will be Overeem's 63rd MMA fight. This is one of the biggest experience discrepancies I've ever seen. And Alistair Overeem has almost twice as many losses as Rozenstruik has wins. That's the type of thing we're talking about. Other thing is, Overeem is a pretty decent grappler. He's worked very well, where he's improved his grappling ability quite substantially. He was always a decent grappler, good submissions, though he hasn't had a submission since 2009. But he is a decent wrestler, and he does show it. He does use it every once in a while. And Rozenstruik's takedown defense has not looked very good against actual man-baby Junior Albini, which was his first UFC fight, I believe. He got taken down at least twice. Had a very strange, just looked like he didn't really know what he was doing. He would fight for the underhooks and then sort of stop. Like he wouldn't do anything with underhooks, just hold on. And I don't really know what he was waiting for. But, yeah, so then he was getting thrown around basically by, man-baby Junior Albini. It's just so strange. His body type is so strange. And again, that was his first UFC fight, but that was only 10 months ago. And this is a potential issue with pushing guys up the rankings too quickly. And you see this with guys like Darren Till, who don't have the best striking defense, and then get pushed up the welterweight rankings, and just get destroyed by Tyron Woodley, and then Jorge Masvidal. And this could be another fight where that is the case. Again, this was only 10 months ago, where Junior Albini, a guy who very few people have heard of, is throwing you around. And again, Rozenstruik came back and got the knockout in the second round, but still, if Junior Albini can take you down, and threaten you with submissions. I mean, he threatened him with a Kimura, I believe, at least twice, and an Americana maybe even, and he had the back as well in the first round, if I'm remembering that correctly. But yeah, I think Overeem probably won't sub him because Overeem hasn't had a sub in 10 years. Doesn't mean he's not capable of it. You know, he doesn't just forget how to do a guillotine, but I think the threat of the submissions will be more helpful to Overeem than actually going for the submissions, especially at heavyweight. Guys can just do stand-up jiu-jitsu like Derek Lewis does and just get out of stuff. So I think it's better to threaten it, to use it, to keep them down. And that seems to be a general theme in MMA. Guys like Colby Covington use that, where they just hang onto your neck. Or Habib does this as well, that type of grinding style. I'm not saying that Overeem will use this, but it would be smart of him to do so because it means you can't just put both your hands on the ground and stand up when your opponent has one arm under your neck. You can't just put two hands down unless you're Conor McGregor. Anyway. Yeah, so Overeem can wear on him. We don't know if Rozenstruik's power will carry. I think the longer this fight goes, probably it's in Overeem's advantage, but again, we don't know. We haven't seen Rozenstruik go more than 6 or 7 minutes in a UFC fight, and we don't know if his power will translate. If he does have just that touch of death power, it'll probably still work. Another thing is Rozenstruik's striking defense was not that great. He was getting hit by Junior Albini. He's just Overeem can't overextend himself, which he is pretty good at that. His striking is fairly well put together, and he doesn't overextend himself a lot of the time. His striking has aged fairly well given how long he's been in the game. And I don't think standing with Rozenstruik is a good idea because I mentioned Overeem's striking defense. Arlovski is actually number 3 in active heavyweights in striking defense, and look what happened to him. So I don't think Overeem should rely on his striking defense. I think he will get hit, and Rozenstruik has shown that anything he hits you with has power and has enough power to knock you out. So Overeem should wrestle him, tire him out, and again, threaten the submission, but don't use it. Overeem generally seems to be content with chilling in people's guard and just going with elbows and ground and pound, and I think that's a fairly safe option. Rozenstruik, again, doesn't have great stand-ups either. He's not very technical. He uses a lot of energy to stand up, very explosive, and if you can make him do that for 5 rounds, we don't know how he's going to hold up, because we just don't know. He might have amazing cardio, but he also might just be like every other heavyweight, which seems the more likely scenario. So yeah, this fight's a tough one to predict. My gut is telling me Rozenstruik is just he only needs one punch. It's like what we were saying with Deontay Wilder. You have to be perfect for 25 minutes. Rozenstruik has to be perfect for a fraction of a second. He just has to hit you with one punch, seemingly. Again, with the guy who tends to get knocked out, and Alistair Overeem, that seems to be the most likely outcome. Overeem is the favorite, I believe, though, which was kind of surprising to me. This is kind of Overeem's worst matchup, if you think about it, because Rozenstruik just has that power, and that seems to be sort of like an Ngannou type fight again for Overeem. But who knows? We'll see. I also don't like just giving punchers chances, though, because it's a chance. Overeem will be the more technical fighter. That's not to say Rozenstruik isn't technical. He has good striking, but I don't know. He just doesn't have that. He hasn't had time to age at MMA. This will be his 10th fight against a really experienced fighter. It's an interesting fight, though. This is a very interesting fight. I'm excited to watch it.